That leads me to something totally unrelated. A lot of people ask about, should we fire chase? Do I fire chase? And if I do fire chase, what should be the protocol? Are you guys fire chasing? A lot of people have a stigma about fire chasing. Let's say it's akin to what maybe an ambulance chaser might be, right? You don't want to be the attorney that follows the ambulance looking for the personal injury, right? But the same kind of stigma attaches itself to fire chasing. So if you're a company that goes out listening to all of the scanners for the emergency service vehicles, and you're listening for all the fires that are happening in your region and responding, hoping to get that fire job, a lot of adjusters don't care for it. Public adjusters oftentimes do it, and a lot of people don't want to be associated with public adjusters because, unfortunately, they're the arch enemy of the insurance companies we represent, because public adjusters are trying to represent the clients who had the fire in this example, and they're trying to escalate the claim, get as much for the claim as possible, exceed, if possible, whatever the claim will pay, because they make a percentage of the job and what that claim works out to be. So insurance companies and the adjusters that work for insurance companies don't like the public adjusters. So being around them and being associated with them is probably bad news. But you can do this effectively. If you choose to go the route of a fire chaser, you got to be smart about it. And I don't embrace it so much, but if I were to do it, I would think about it from a perspective of somebody who's got to be sympathetic to the needs of somebody who was just affected by a fire, right? You don't want to be pushy. You don't want to be salesy. That's the last place to go ahead and be salesy. Somebody is sitting maybe on the curb looking at their home still ablaze from a fire that's going on. There are emergency people around. That's not the hard sale approach. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think that's where the bad stigma comes. People are pushing to get the board up, pushing to go ahead and secure the property, and that just becomes counterintuitive for somebody who feels violated and their house is engulfed in flames. So if you wanted to fire chase at all, the best approach that I've seen would look a little bit more like this. I have an example. Creating a fire chase bag with the intent to give something of value to the person who's been affected by the fire sure seems to be a bit more sympathetic. Inside this can be a number of things. In this bag, they've got a couple of different deodorants for the people who are going to be displaced. They're going to have to leave that home right now, oftentimes not getting a chance to grab the last minute details that they need, such as deodorant and toothbrushes and mouthwash and things of that nature. So if you were to provide a gift bag of sorts, and it could be in a tote, it could be, if you wanted to, branded, that's fine. But leaving some literature would be fine if it's not over the top. It could be just information such as tips you should be aware of when re-entering the home after a fire. Makes a lot of sense. Maybe you can include something something like a dust mask for 2 people. That way, when they go back into the home to grab the few things they need, they have that, maybe some gloves that they can wear so they don't necessarily affect the scene in any way. That at least speaks to the fact that they have to go back in, but they only have a few minutes to grab some things. That might be something you could add to it. But in this case, they included a few toothbrushes. You can do up to 4 toothbrushes, because let's say the average household has 2 parents and 2 children. That's not a bad move. Some toothpaste. This has a hand sanitizer in it. And the literature that they left behind was a coloring book for the children with some crayons. And I think all that does is say, hey, you know what? I understand you're going to be displaced, you're going to be in the hotel. Tonight, you do not have to make any decisions. I don't want you to make a decision right now as to what restorer to go ahead and reach out to. You don't need to go ahead and make a decision about the board up. I don't want to even be pushy. I simply want to provide you with some information about us. So at some point in time, maybe later this week, after you've ingested all of this, you've been able to make a clearer decision of what you want to do going forward. That's the only way I would approach it, because anything short of that seems to be too in your face, and it's not something I would respond favorably to if the fire had occurred on my residence. And I just think you got to go with your gut with that. If you're just too pushy, it's going to push them away. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. I want to be honest. There would be no way for me to talk about this topic, and a lot of people want to ask, should I chase or should I not? There's a lot of people making a lot of money doing it. A lot of people doing it very unscrupulously. There's a guy who actually, he's a public adjuster, he actually comes in a vehicle that looks like a fire department truck. It looks like it. It's got decals that look similar. And he gets out, and just before he gets out, he puts on his fire pants, you know what I mean, to get the whole thing on, and he approaches the customer at the front door as if he represents the fire department, and then later tells them about what they can do for their claim and how they're there to get the most value for the claim, and let's get that insurance company. It's counterintuitive. There's no way that that person is doing the right thing. It's unethical at best, and I don't want to be associated with it, but it exists. Why does he do it? I'm pretty sure because he converts a lot of people. He makes a lot of money, and he can sleep well at night knowing that. I just can't work that way. You know, the coloring book could even be about, you know, fire safety tips. It could be, you know, children in nature geared, whereby it's all about like planning a safe fire escape. Those kinds of things make sense to me. Now, I haven't done this myself, but if I were to, I've thought about it. This is how I would go about doing so.